This video was made possible by Wix. If you're ready to create a website, head over to wix.com/go/infographics to try out one of their premium plans right now. Non-state or stateless societies were the norm in the past, and then with the rise of agricultural practices, we got together and formed societies and started to cooperate in larger groups than our tribe, and so begun our civilization process, but also with it, despotic leaders, human rights abuses, and sometimes brutal laws. Homo sapiens, once mostly nomadic hunter-gatherers, banded together and created towns and cities, and sometimes ineluctable hierarchies. This Neolithic Revolution made us more sedentary, perhaps less prone to violence. That's a hot potato of a question. And it had a huge impact on our health. But how do we in our cities compare to wild people still living in tribes? Today we'll explore this comparison in this episode of the Infographics Show. Why is this tribe so far from civilization so healthy? First of all, we're going to focus on one tribe as that's where a lot of recent research has been done. We are by no means saying that being tribal means having great health, or that this one group of people and their health mirrors tribal societies in, say, the Arctic, Amazon rainforest, or the Sahara Desert. The Bushmen of southern Africa lead a very different lifestyle from the most remote hill tribes of northern Thailand. Interestingly though, you can find reports of Kalahari Bushmen saying when modern life encroached into their lifestyle, the price to pay was high. Disease, booze, and too many babies to young mothers, writes the BBC. The hill tribes of Thailand have also been tested by modern consumerism, rife alcoholism, and methamphetamine abuse. But let's put that aside for now and go across the world to Bolivia. A BBC article in 2017 said the healthiest hearts in the world have been found in the Chimene people in the forests of Bolivia. So who are the Chimene people? The BBC says they number around 16,000, but other reports say the population is much smaller than that, around 2,000 to 6,000. They can be found in lowland Bolivia and live for the most part by subsistence farming. This basically means self-sufficiency farming in which you produce enough for you and your family or group to eat and don't create enough for trade. The Chimene also hunt and go fishing for their meals. In recent years, some of the Chimene have been farming and selling what they grew and also using cash. They speak Chimene, which is what we call a language isolate. That means it doesn't come from other languages. But what's interesting to us is their good health. Let's have a look at that. If we look at Western countries, we can see that heart disease is often the #1 killer. In the USA, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention puts it at the top just above cancer. The third spot and way behind was accidents. We don't need to tell you that heart disease, despite sometimes just running in the family, can often be prevented or stalled by having a healthier diet, doing a bit of exercise, and perhaps going easy on the cigarettes and the 14-hour shifts with 30-minute lunch breaks at McDonald's. Scientists wanted to find out just how much we might prevent this killer disease by changing our lifestyle. To do this, they did the right thing and looked at heart disease rates in the USA, looked at the lifestyle of many people in the country, and then compared it to heart disease and lifestyle in the Chimene groups. The introduction in the paper published by The Lancet said, to better understand the association between the pre-industrial lifestyle and low prevalence of coronary artery disease risk factors, we examined the Chimene, a Bolivian population living a subsistence lifestyle of hunting, gathering, fishing, and farming, with few cardiovascular risk factors, but high infectious inflammatory burden. What did the researchers find out? Well, after they took a number of flights and even traveled by canoe to get to the Amazon, they found that the Chimene lifestyle was indeed very different from your average American, Brit, Frenchman, or Canadian. They found that 17% of the Chimene diet was wild game. This is a lot of meat that mostly consisted of wild pig, tapir, which looks like a cross between a pig and a baby elephant, and capybara, kind of like a giant guinea pig. They were also partial to fish, about 7% of their diet, that came in the form of catfish and piranha. To fill up, they ate rice, maize, and something similar to sweet potato. And they also liked plantains, not so different from bananas. They also foraged and ate nuts and lots of fruit. The scientists said that, all in all, about 72% of their calories came from carbohydrates, which is more than in the US, at about 52%. Fats made up 14% of their diet compared to 34% in the US. The scientists added that people in the US ate way more saturated fat, They weren't much different from people in the US in one respect, and that was that both got about 14% of their calories from protein. Although the researchers said the Chimene ate more lean meat. What about burning those calories? Well, this is where folks in the US were very different. Have you been counting your steps using an app? If so, even if you move a lot in the day, 10,000 steps isn't bad at all. But the Chimene were averaging 17,000 for men and 16,000 for women every day. Even the people aged over 60 were getting in an average of 15,000 steps a day. How does this all affect their health? The scientists looked at something called coronary artery calcium. If you have a lot of it, you are on your way to heart problems. You have clogged up arteries. At the age of 45, the Chimene had pretty much no CAC at all. Americans, on the other hand, at that age do. About 25% of people in total. When Americans reach 75, 80% of them will have CAC. Only 1/3 of the Chimene will. Nowhere on Earth have researchers found people with such good tickers. A professor of anthropology at the University of California said that Japanese women were good, but this is a whole new ballpark. The conclusion is that your average Chimene person has the vascular health of an American 50-year-old when they're 80. We should add that the Chimene run the risk of easily contracting infectious diseases and don't have the healthcare most Westerners do. It's not some kind of health utopia in the Chimene, but we can learn a lot from them. Nonetheless, it was revealed 2/3 of them suffer intestinal worms, and they have a very hard life without fresh water, sewerage, or electricity, according to one researcher. They have good hearts, but it doesn't mean they don't face other problems. How do we get the hearts of the Chimene? It's quite simple. Don't stuff yourself with saturated fats and sugars. Keep your blood sugar, your LDL cholesterol, and your blood pressure low. Maybe even more importantly, try to move around a bit and not just during the weekend. Studies show that industrialized nations, the average person might sit for 54% of the day. The Chimene spent about 10% of the day sedentary. But lo and behold, something similar is happening to the Chimene that has been happening to other tribal people we talked about at the start of the show. Modernity is encroaching into their lifestyle, and they have started buying sugary goods and cooking oils at markets. We're told their cholesterol levels are getting worse. However, Professor Naveed Sattar from the University of Glasgow called the study beautiful. He told the BBC, simply put, eating a healthy diet very low in saturated fat and full of unprocessed products, not smoking, and being active lifelong is associated with the lowest risk of having furring up of the blood vessels. Researchers said while our jobs make it hard for us to move about a lot, that's what we should try to do, whether walking to work or cycling to work. It's not always easy in the depth of winter during a bitterly cold, unforgiving December. Well, try to stand more at work, say the researchers. Another doctor said this about the Chimene. They also live in small communities. Life is very social and they maintain a positive outlook. This could be more important than you think. You might remember reports about the inhabitants of Roseto, Pennsylvania. Researchers who went there in the 1960s found that the people didn't exactly have the greatest diet. They also smoked. They drank a lot, and yet they were much healthier on average than their compatriots. Scientists, as is written in the Book of Sapiens, were stumped. People of the town, just about all of Italian descent, smoked really strong cigars, drank with abandon, and ate what they wanted, and yet they outlived other Americans on average. Heart disease rates were much lower than neighboring towns. Much of the men also worked hard in nearby slate quarries, and when they got home, it's said they ate a fatty diet full of cholesterol. Lots of cheese, lots of salami, lots of fried sausages. The Huffington Post wrote in 2008, wine was consumed in preference to all American soft drinks and even milk. Is becoming a wino, a sausage addict, and a chain smoker the answer to all of our health issues? Is a bottle of Bordeaux and a stodgy cigar the panacea for that premature knock on the door by the Grim Reaper? Not quite so, unfortunately. This is what the researchers concluded when trying to figure out why these folks lived longer and suffered less heart disease than fellow Americans. They were happier. The Rosetans lived in a very tightly knit community. They were never alone. They ate together. They drank wine together. They looked after each other. No one seemed too unhappy or too stressed out, wrote the Huffington Post. And the proof was a heart attack death rate almost half of everyone else around them. 3 families might live in one house. The old folks were not sent away to drizzle out their last years within the confines of some deathly care home. Like the Chimene, they were very social and took care of their community. Unfortunately, as time went by, this all changed, and the people of Roseto started to live like their neighbors. The American Journal of Public Health investigated the town in 1992, more than 30 years after the initial reports, and researchers said the average Rosadan had become Americanized. The sense of community was gone, and so was the good health. They were stressed, they were sometimes lonely, and the Rosado effect was no longer in effect. Perhaps if we deal with our stress and maintain our close relationships, if we have fun as often as we can, and nurture love around us, it can impact our health in a positive way, as it did according to those scientists for the Rosadans. Maybe we can take a leaf out of the Chimene Book of Life and move around a lot more, eating largely non-processed foods. Maybe then we'll live healthier and longer lives. There's a lot of things that have become vital in our modern world, and having a great website is definitely one of them. Luckily for you, Wix is here to help you build and host your own fully personalized website today. Whether you're freshly arrived from the deep Amazon jungle or are a design pro, Wix's combination of over 500 fully customizable templates and robust design tools to build your own from scratch gives you everything you need to make a stunning site right now. Click the link in the description below or go to wix.com/go/infographics today and check out just how fast and easy Wix makes it to have your own amazing site. Do you believe this to be true? Do you feel like your neighborhood has a sense of community? Let us know in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other video, The Cannibal Island. Thanks for watching, and as always, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.